On Friday, May 13th, Brooklyn, New York, are you ready to play a wicked mass as Ride Along presents Midnight Mass, the Ultra Glow Fest. Everything must glow. Junior George official birthday party featuring live from Grenada for the very first time. Little Jello,
why not Ginger?
Jello,
And you're playing bad guy.
together with the Energy Kings of Soca, Looney Spark and Electrify Live. Also coming to shell the place down, it's Mr. Legs and Denise Sosiwa Belfon. All going down inside 178 Newport Street, Brooklyn, New York. Get your Oliver tickets for only $30 more at the door. Get them on Eventbrite, nightmass.eventbrite.com. And for more details, 718-701-5720. Your DJs, DJ Hot Stepper, Lil B, and DJ Spice. It's Midnight Mass, the Ultra Glow Fest. Glow sticks on entry. Wear something white. Midnight Mass. Inside of Brooklyn, 178 Newport Street. Friday, May 13th.
Well, it's on Ride Along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean? You know, I grew up in what I guess you call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Ride Along Live, I mean, yeah, it's the real deal.
Yeah. Welcome to Ride Along Live for today. How you guys doing? Everybody. It's Tuesday, guys. It's Tuesday, aka my Monday, because yesterday was a holiday. So, in solidarity of everyone celebrating, I deserve a holiday as well. Because you guys know I don't usually take a holiday. But yesterday I had to. So today is like my official Monday. Okay? All right. How everybody doing? Hey, Favor King, how you doing? Hope you guys having a great time, a great on the vibe, on the check-in, on the ride. As you come in, guys, share up the thing, because today we have a very interesting program lined up for you. Yes. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting program lined up for you. I ain't gonna lie. So guys, share it up. The folks in St. Vincent, big up yourself. The folks in Trinidad, big up yourself. The folks in Toronto, yourself. Jamaica, pick up yourself. Lydia, Fitzroy, Cindy, Rampazad, Monica, everybody. And to make sure that we, our Caribbean vibe, I want you guys to do a quick little roll call. Let me know where you're watching us from. Let me see where you're watching from. I know that today for the first time, we are broadcasting live on this very popular ANN page there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Big up yourself. Also, we're live here in New York City on 107.9 J Wanda FM. So the folks that's listening to us in howdy. Akeem, how you doing? All right, guys. All right. We ain't wasting no time, eh? We ain't wasting no time because the man himself, Mr. Gary Griffith. Hey, England, Rena, how you doing? Big up yourself. Mr. Gary Griffith is here. Yes. And we're going to have a long, nice chat with Mr. Gary Griffith. And I know, don't lie, when most people, when they hear that name, it brings chills. They just, yeah. It's like when you suck a sour tambourine and you see somebody sucking a tambourine and you just chill, right? Yeah. That's what Gary Griffith does to people. He just instilled that kind of, Yeah, so we're going to have a chat with Mr. Gary Griffith from Trinidad and Tobago. He's here. Yes, there he is. Myself. Yeah, man. Nice discussion with Mr. Gary Griffith. So everybody go ahead and share the program right now. Share it up. Because it shall be interesting. All right, let me make sure everybody in the check-in. Akeem is in, Nafisia Evans, everybody is in. All right, guys, we ain't wasting no time. We're going straight in to the thing. Kobe bringing back in my special guest for today, former National Security Minister, former police commissioner of police, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Mr. Gary Griffith. How you doing, my friend?
Fine, thanks. Are you feel like if you ate a salty tambourine now?
I saw, like when you suck a sour tambourine, you see somebody suck a sour tambourine, and I just go, oh, your mouth out of water. Okay. It's not you, but you're just solidarity, solidarity.
I hear you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, Gary, how you doing, my friend?
Well, just I could be better. Just now on the better half of the week, recovering from COVID. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you all hear me, it's a slight cough. It's not contagious through the phone, so you're okay. But yeah, so please excuse me every now and then.
I already had it twice. So I'm good.
All right.
I don't think I can have it a third time. No, that would be something else. But Gary, so you recovering fine? Everything is good?
Yeah. I gave COVID 2 books and it's on its way.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I never thought that the big bad, Gary Griffith could ever catch anything like COVID. COVID should be scared of you. I don't understand that.
COVID on his way out, yeah.
Gary, let's chat a bit. I mean, you former police commissioner, former security minister, and whenever anyone hear that name, as I said earlier, it kind of brings that chills to people. It just kind of bring that bold chilling effect to people. Why is it that that name is so synonymous with just fear? I don't understand. It is for me. When my producer told me I was interviewing Gary Griffith, I had okay, all right, no problem. He can't do me nothing. I'm all the way in the United States, but what is it about you?
But I honestly don't know. That's the first I'm hearing this. I mean, what I do, because of my strong passion and my conviction and how I act as a leader, regardless, I mean, you just spoke about Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police. I was also probably I was one of the youngest military captains. I was spent 17 years in the Defense Force. I was the first Trinidad and Tobago citizen to get a UN Peacekeeping Medal. I was military attaché to a prime minister and a president. I was the National Security Advisor. So I've been in many different steps throughout my career. And what I do it with a lot of passion and conviction. So persons don't actually have a sort of a neutral view about Gary Griffith. There's either you love me to death or you wish I was dead. You hate me. It was not coincidental that there were 33 death threats on me and my family during the 3 years as Commissioner of Police. You're speaking about almost every month there was a clear death threat. Special branch actually stated that it was the highest precedented level they've ever seen of someone being targeted to be assassinated. So persons, it will instill some degree of hatred, bitterness, because when I operate to win. I play to win, not just in national security, but even in sport. When I was in the Defense Force, I was in charge of the hockey, basketball, cricket, football team, they all won. They were champions. When I joined the police service as the commissioner, they never won anything in 25 years, the police team. We are now the FA Cup champions, and we are now top of the Ascension League. The hockey team is now national champions. So whatever I do it with pride, and that's why it is I've moved back into politics. But 89% of the country, they welcome that approach, and they look forward to seeing Gary Griffith. 11% wish that they can never see me and that I will never set foot, they will never be able to see me in person again. So I bring a degree of intensity. Either you love me or you hate me. It happens.
Yeah. So why police commissioner? Because in many instances I've heard police commissioner are actually former police officers, but you didn't come in with that, or did you come in with that police experience before you came in to be the police commissioner?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, that is correct. I had no police service experience when I applied for the position as Commissioner of Police in 2018. I had 17 years military service. And it is not the first. Right now, which was really shocking. It's sad that certain persons in Trinidad and Tobago, they can't see further north than Tobago, or further east than Miaro. They stay in Trinidad and Tobago and believe the world circles around Trinidad and Tobago. In Jamaica, guess who's the Commissioner of Police? A previous Army colonel who never had one-day police experience. And it says a lot. In New York City, by the way, I will hope that many of you all will know that to be the NYPD commissioner, you must not be a serving police officer. You all may not be aware of that. I have worked with, apart from being there working with Mayor Giuliani, I brought him into Trinidad and Tobago. I worked with Bill Bratton, Bernard Kerrick. I met 3 police commissioners when I was the commissioner of police. I twinned. People are not aware, for the first time, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are twinned with NYPD, and it played a very big part towards the highest reduction in crime in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, where we brought down over 140 less murders from one year to my last year, because of a lot of things that I picked up from New York City. So I did not have, when I applied, I had no experience in policing. However, what people believe is that to be a police commissioner, the be all and end all is to be a police officer. It is not. It has to do with leadership. And that is the point. It's similar to saying, why was this person be the president of the United States when he was in the military? What does he know about politics? 31 out of the 46 US presidents had military service. You could go from Lincoln to John F. Kennedy to the Bush and so forth. So it has to do with leadership. And when it is that's why when it was drafted, someone could have applied if they had experience in law enforcement and a master's in security. So that gave me the opportunity, as well as many senior officers in the Defense Force. Several of them applied. So when I applied, over 50 persons shortlisted, and I came first in every single assessment, the mock media conference, the essays, the operational report, because of my training in the military to understand how to lead. And that is the more important thing. In 2021, I reapplied and I topped every single one of the 8 assessments again, beating the nearest police officer by over 20%. So the concept is not that you need to be a police officer. It will be good, but it is not mandatory.
Tell us about your initial thought process of getting into the police service, right? Folks would say that, it was essential at the time because there was a lot of cleaning up. There was the influx of gangs. There was so much happening, and not only Trinidad, but around the Caribbean. What was your initial thought process or initiative that made you want to come from the Ministry of National Security into the police service?
A brilliant question. When I was Minister of National Security, I was able, as a Minister of National Security, my role and function was to draft policies. But then all the policies I did, and ensured in that period, 2013 to 2015, it was the highest reduction in crime in 25 years in Trinidad and Tobago. But I could have done much more. But the operations to operationalize the policies, there were shortcomings, and it's because of some avoiding leadership in persons understanding how to establish these operations based on the policies that I drafted. So, for example, I did a lot, if you want to call it cheating, I looked at what Patrick Manning had. Patrick Manning in 2007, 8, 9, the man was brilliant. He had a vision for Trinidad and Tobago, that is where he formed the special anti-crime unit of Trinidad and Tobago. He was looking at the concept of a maritime wall through the OPVs, the blimp. So there were a lot of things that he was doing. And unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, when governments change, you shut down everything. So when I became security advisor and then minister, I reignited many things that I saw Patrick Manning would have been doing at a cheaper cost, obviously. So instead of SWOT, I formed the National Security Special Operation Group. I formed the Rapid Response Unit, the Child Protection Unit, the National Security Training Academy. I got the same type of vessels for over 600 million less than the OPVs to do the same thing for the maritime wall. But then I realized it was not moving as fast as I wanted because there was an operational shortcoming by those in the hierarchy of the police service. So that's why when I applied, I was then able to immediately hit the ground running and to operationalize the policies that I drafted as the minister. And that is where you started seeing a massive reduction, not just in crime, but public trust and confidence in the police service in Trinidad and Tobago was at an all-time low in 2018. 14% of the public had trust and confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago police service. It was the lowest, among the lowest of all public sector departments in Trinidad and Tobago. When I left, it was 55%, one of the highest. And now it has gone back to about 17%. And it had to do with many things I did to instill confidence, to build trust, measure performance, make police officers accountable. So that is one of the reasons why I decided to apply, because I saw the things that I drafted as policies, but they were not being properly operationalized by the police.
Right. I saw you were speaking on the topic, and you said something that I would like you to exponent on about community policing and the importance of that community policing. And it's important to have that buy-in from the community. How did you set up, or what kind of setup plan that you had to work with the community to even solve crimes?
Yeah, well, again, I working closely with NYPD. I looked at what they did, how they interacted. So apart from cybercrime, domestic violence, many things I piggybacked looking at the NYPD model because they're much older than us, so they've made many more mistakes. So I decided to fast track it. And one of the things with community policing was not just what we thought as community policing is that every police officer is a community police officer. Not true. It was specific type of training that must be done, which was not done before. So I remember there was a police commissioner, I think Hilton Guy, he said every police officer should be considered a community police officer. Not true. It's a different type of training. So in Canada, for example, they wear civilian clothes. And it was not just about police officers turning up at community centers and telling the citizens what to do. I turned community policing into not just that interaction, but even looking at youth development, where that is where I formed the Commissioner's Cup, where for the first time, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we formed a massive national youth football tournament, and it didn't just bring young men together in the community, it brought the communities together. It brought different families, different gangs, different blocks together. And instead of them clashing with each other, they will compete on the football field, and win, lose or draw, it started building a better relationship between the families, the relatives, the houses, the neighbors, the communities, the different places throughout the country. And that is what my concept was to unify the country using sport. And that was one of the major aspects we use in community policing.
Yeah. And it's important because I think community, as you rightfully said, is having the community buy-in. It's because there's just so much police officers on the street. The community need to play a part. But what I'm in Trinidad and in the Caribbean particularly, but in Trinidad specifically, as it relates to gangs, who are really committing those crimes, and who are those gang members right now that's prevalent?
Yeah, well, it is unfortunate. On my departure, my last 8 months as Commissioner of Police, there was, as I said, there was a massive reduction. My first 15 months, it was madness, because the unfortunate thing is we have to look at crime statistics. For the 30 years that the PNM have been in government, every year they've been in government in the last 3 decades, crime goes up every year. The only time it did not happen was when I was Commissioner of Police. It moved from 540 to 390. The next year, in those 8 months when I was Commissioner of Police, we were going at a ratio of 320 murders per annum. In the 8 months since I have left, we are now going at a ratio of closer to 600 murders per annum, almost 2 times more than my last 8 months to the present 8 months since my departure. And it had to do with many things to peg back criminal elements. Obviously, gang-related activity is the catalyst towards most of the crime in Trinidad and Tobago. But it wasn't just about going after gangs. I had to make sure that police officers were accountable. I had to measure their performance. I obviously, as you'll have in other countries, police officers, some of them were part and parcel of the gang activity. They were protecting the drug blocks. They were escorting the gang members. Drugs became a problem. and I decided to take the fight to the criminals, and that's why I was very aggressive. It put fear in the criminal elements. They started backing off, and then eventually the gang started realizing, look, we cannot fight this guy, because I started showing that, listen, we are bigger, we are stronger, we have numerical superiority, and we are going to come after you. They didn't want to fight the police. They will fight each other, and I was bullying myself. I was the Wednesday. I said, if you all are going to fight with each other, I'm going to come in there. And by doing that, the gang started saying, look, let me stay in my block, let me stay in my area. Crime was going to be eliminated, but you were seeing the massive reduction because the gang started staying in their holes, staying in their area, and some of them even started trying to comply to utilize some of their talent. Because I could tell you, as much as people would criticize these gang leaders, some of these individuals, if they use their talents in the right manner, these are brilliant young men. They are to be able to influence so many young persons. They have leadership capabilities. Some of them, they run businesses, they get contracts from the government. If they use their resources, their talent, their expertise, their leadership in the right manner, their communities will develop, and it will not turn into bloodshed. And that's what I kept trying to push as much as possible. So the gang members started respecting me, not seeing me as the biggest gang member, because I had a no-nonsense approach with abuse of power, likewise by the police. But if it is that persons will try to shoot at police officers, we will shoot back. And persons had a problem with my one shot, one kill. But you're not going to shoot on my police officers and expect us to run. We went after them hard, they backed down, and you started seeing the difference. On my departure, the gang started realizing there's no more threat, there's no deterrent, there's no high visibility, there's no rapid response. The product of opportunity was there, and they started coming back out. Home invasions started coming back in, kidnappings. Kidnappings actually went to zero in my last year as Commissioner of Police. That ended. So all of these things, gang members now started killing their others in cold blood, broad daylight in the middle of Port of Spain on 12 o'clock on a Saturday. And now we have from the highest reduction in crime in the 8 months, my last 8 months, it is now the highest spike in crime. And this is not about Gary Griffith. All I would have taken is just to use the same plans, the same policies, the same principles that I had. But unfortunately, just as what happens when governments change, every single thing that I had, all the plans, all the policies, the use of technology, systems to measure performance, they all dismantle it, they shut it down, just as what the UNC did when the PNM was removed in 2010, just as what the PNM did when the UNC was removed in 2015. Minister Hines and certain persons in the higher echelon of the police service, they decided Gary Griffith is not there. Let's remove his memory. Let's shut down and dismantle every single thing he did, inclusive of technology. Technology was critical to assist me in reducing crime, and it was able to have gangs wondering, how does this man understand what we are doing before we even do it? I push what was known as predictive policing. So it is not about the crime take place and let's just go on the scene to try to pinpoint who is the perpetrator. We did predictive policing. We provided deterrence. We provided the high visibility. We did intelligence-driven policing, to the point that people, my biggest complaint that I was getting from the public is that they were seeing too many blue lights, too many sirens, too many police vehicles. I lit up Trinidad and Tobago, and that unfortunately is no longer the case.
I want to look at this graph because I want to know how correct, or if this data information is in fact correct. Because I'm looking at a data going back from, I believe, the year 2018. You came in August of 2018. And correct me if I'm wrong, in 2014 to 2019, of course, there was a drastic decrease in 2020. And it's debatable as to that decrease. There was COVID, people are locked inside.
Oh, no, we can discuss that. We can discuss that when you right after. Yeah.
So from 2014, we saw an upward increase from 403 to 40 to 420, 462, 469. In 2019, which was actually a year, a few, at least 2 years at least, crime went up to 436. Is that a valid graph?
No, you're mixing it up. All right, so let's go back to 2013. I was the Minister of National Security 2013 to early 2015. So in 2014, that year, you'd have seen the lowest dip that was under the UNC government under my watch as Minister of National Security, because the policies that I put in place played a major dent in crime reduction. On my departure, similar, Gary Griffith leaves, shut down everything, dismantle what he did. The National Operations Center, the National Security Special Operation Group, the Maritime Wall, all of the different aspects. And crime started going up every single year. I arrived in late 2018. When I
Yes.
arrived, crime was automatically increasing in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. So it is impossible to expect that within a few weeks or months it would have turned. So what I inherited was the gradual increase in crime that takes place every single time PNM is in government. So up until the end, and that's went on to 2020. By then, now it took me 15 odd months to be able to do what was never done in 15 years. Turn around crime to the point that you would have seen a 35% reduction in every violent crime: murder,
Yeah.
gang-related violence, shootings, rape, kidnapping, grievous bodily harm, car thefts. Every single major crime went down in 2020. No,
Yes.
2021. Sorry, 2020. No, what is
it was down to about
2020?
28.2
Yeah,
for
2020.
100,000.
And then in the
That's
first
down
8
from
months in 2021,
Yes.
and the first 8 months in 2021, that gradual decrease continued. We were going at about 25 to 27 murders per month, which would have been a ratio of about 320 per annum. On my
Right.
departure, it increased. Now, the nice thing about it is that the certain persons who love to try to find excuses say that it's because of COVID. But guess what? In the United States, New York, Detroit, LA, Chicago, Boston, Miami, almost every city, it was the highest spike in murders and major crime in those cities in decades. Guess what? During COVID. So it may mean that the criminals in the United States missed that memo to say, well, I'm not supposed to rape because of COVID. The woman might have COVID. And, I'm not supposed to kill this fella because if I kill him, the blood might spill on me and I might get COVID. And I'm not supposed to rob from this. So the American criminals missed that big memo from Trinidad that says COVID stops crime. So in other words, that was total nonsense. Additionally, when the crime started going down, if that was the case, how come when I left, there was still COVID, there was still public health regulations, there was still the state of emergency, the latter part of last year, when crime escalated to its highest ever? You're talking about 77 murders in November, when there was still COVID, still state of emergency, still public health regulations. So it was a cop-out and it was a cheap excuse to take away the fact that the policies and the systems that we put was the reason for the reduction in crime.
What about the comparison to the analogy to say that the restrictions that was placed in the U.S. Was less stringent than the policies that was in the Caribbean? Like, for instance, the lockdown measures was lockdown, like in Grenada and even in Jamaica. Crime also dropped in Jamaica, right?
No, it did not. Look at the stats. Crime actually increased during COVID period. It increased.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah, and also in Nicaragua and in many other cities, crime increased because the concept of what criminologists should look at is if there's COVID, what would happen if there's COVID? It means that persons will lose their jobs. It will be increased unemployment. It will cause inflation, which are all factors that will cause increased crime. If you don't have your job, if the economy starts to collapse, if inflation sets in, if there's a greater demand now and expenses will come in where less income is coming in, because one of the main reasons for crime and on most occasions is the need for money and the need for, so COVID would be a factor, something that will cause crime and it will cause persons to be frustrated because you can't socialize, you can't play sports, you can't exercise, you get frustrated, you stay in your home, domestic violence will also increase. So when you look at criminological theory, there's nothing that you can say that. And furthermore, the crimes that would have been taking place in Trinidad and Tobago during COVID were taking place after I left, in broad daylight. So this was not to say that there was during the if there was during the curfew or whatever. This was broad daylight, whether there was a curfew or not, crime was taking place in broad daylight. So the curfews or the state of emergency was irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that the criminal elements realized the opportunity is there for us to commit the act because there's no deterrent. Crime is a product of opportunity. The greater the deterrent, the less likelihood persons will commit crime because now there's a greater possibility of them being apprehended.
Right. Guys, again, we're talking here with Mr. Gary Griffith. He is our special guest. And yes, you guys are going to have an opportunity to chat with Mr. Gary Griffith a little bit later. But we're talking about, also we're going to talk about the fact that there is a new political organization, and we're going to tell you all about that, right? Gary, let's talk about another prevalence of a crime that a lot of times I'm not satisfied with how it has been handled. It has to do with rape and violence against children, sexual assault against children. How did you handle these this violent crime in your tenure as police commissioner?
Well, even go back to when I was Minister of National Security, Diane Wyatt, she actually mentioned and thanked me that as the Minister of National Security, I was instrumental in the drafting of the laws for the Children's Act and to have that type of representation to protect children. One of the reasons why I became a military officer, the reason I became Commissioner of Police, the reason I became Minister of National Security, I hate bullies. I really despise the fact of when people try to take advantage of elderly, take advantage of women, take advantage of children, take advantage of animals. And that is where I jump in. I'm not going to say that I will bully bullies, but I hate when it is that people feel that you can take advantage. And when I became Commissioner of Police, again, piggybacking from the New York model, I brought in Mayor Giuliani from Giuliani and Partners that I'm looking at what they did to reduce. There was a massive reduction in New York City dealing with domestic violence. How was it done? How was it achieved? And what we looked at Trinidad and Tobago, we reached a point where a few years ago, a lady was raped. Her clothes was shredded. And she walked in the police station. The police officer told her she's improperly dressed. She needs to leave. That is how bad it was. Now, this is not to knock our police service. It had to do with training. Not every single police officer is going to be on that desk at that night and be trained to understand how to deal with that type of a victim. Another police officer, he may be, because I have 7,000 police officers, I can't put my hand on a block to know that all 7,000 would not be wife beaters. So you turn up, an unlucky woman turns up after being beaten by someone, turns up at a station 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you hear the police officer, well, why you decided to go home this hour? So we were getting reports like this. And that's why I brought in Giuliani and Partners. We started training, and I formed the gender-based violence unit, which was never done before in the history of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And it showed the importance. I understood the value of having an elite unit specifically assigned to deal with persons who are victims, because you can't have someone who's a victim and the norm was she's raped, you tell her, right, just sit down there and you stay there for 24 hours, you cannot bathe because we have to do samples and swab you. People are walking in and out and seeing you there. So by forming the gender-based violence unit, the sexual offenses unit, we were able now to make sure that when there are these type of reports, these women and men, by the way, can have that type of confidentiality, sensitivity, making sure that the persons who meet with them, they're properly trained, they are put in specific stations in specific areas where they can immediately be treated, dealt with in a confidential manner. And then, which was strange, is that the NYPD and Giuliani and Partners told me, what you're going to get is an increase in reports. I said, well, my God, it means that we are doing something wrong. They said, no. What is going to happen? It means that the women are now going to be more confident in coming forward and giving the information, because before they felt by just passing it on to the police, they will just get more licks because nothing would be done. We started ensuring now that the persons, that there was not just confidentiality, but there was a degree of a deterrent to ensure that those persons, when reported, we will deal with them. And they will be dealt with, not feeling that they had some police officer friend who will let them off the hook, or have police officers say, well, lady, go back home and deal with your husband. It was not so. That we turned it around to start realizing that the victims now had the support of the police officers. Also, what I did, I pushed in systems to prevent women having to come to the station because of embarrassment, concern that there will be reprisal. So we had online reporting, never done before in the history of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So when you do your online reporting, that was going straight to the sexual and the gender-based violence unit or the sexual offences unit, and not to a station. We also had the app reporting to make sure that you can send that. There's an emergency app. If you press that, immediately will come to your home. We started having that registry to monitor persons. If there was a report that this man had beaten his wife, we'll know that what has happened before. So we had, through the police vehicles, we had the data, so the police officers prior to their arrival will know what they're getting into. So basically I started turning the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service into what you've seen with NYPD, and it worked. And by doing that, that confidence increased, and all of a sudden you got a 52% reduction in domestic violence murders in my last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about police committing crimes? Is involved in committing crimes against the community? How did you deal with that?
And under my watch, it was the highest number of police officers suspended, arrested, disciplined. Because as much as I will take the fight to the criminals, it made no sense if you had police officers that would abuse their authority. And what I did is put systems to measure their performance. First time we started making sure before I left, I put a standard operational procedure, a departmental order stating that if police officers go out on a patrol, you must turn on your body cameras. I implemented the body cameras. I implemented the pepper spray to ensure minimum use of force. So the minimum use of force allowed the officers now from verbal persuasion to the radio for backup to then use the baton, not as pain compliant, but to control the individual, to suppress him, then the pepper spray, and then the firearm as the last resort. Before, a man might just be agitated and the police will be forced to use his firearm, kill the individual, and say that they did that because of fear for their life. So by putting the minimum use of force, it minimized the number of incidents police officers had on citizens. By making it mandatory with the body cameras, it allowed police officers to prevent themselves from committing an act, but also to protect police officers when wrongfully accused by persons that said that they abused their authority. I also put cameras on the dashboards of the police vehicles to monitor everything that was happening. We set up the operational command center, the commissioner's command center, to monitor everything that takes place to ensure that police officers would adhere to their responsibility. If you liaise with Mr. David West from the Police Complaint Authority, he would admit that it was the first time there was ever such close collaboration and communication between the police and the PCA, because initially the PCA was seen as a bad boy that just wanted to discipline police officers. So what I did, I cleaned up the police service. In addition to what I started doing was, for the first time ever, started having mandatory urine tests for drugs on police officers and optional for polygraph testing. Now, the polygraph testing, it cannot be mandatory, but if, for example, I know there are police up there, the Southern Division, which is close to the point where drugs and weapons and human trafficking will be coming from Venezuela. If you want to stay at that station, you need to be polygraph tested. And the polygraph testing is, are you involved in allowing illegal weapons, drugs, or human trafficking? If you do not want to be polygraph tested, I will just transfer you. And if it is you do it and you pass, you remain. So I put systems to lift the standard of the police service, and that is where you were starting to see many police officers realizing, now I have to adhere to my responsibility because there are checks and balances to measure my performance and make me accountable.
Checks and balances, that is very, very important. You spoke about a number of things, body cameras, all this technology. I'm sure that this stuff costs a lot. How relationship like with the powers that be, the prime minister, the finance? How did you work, or how was the relationship?
Well, yeah, sure. I ran the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service as a business. So in total contrast to the lies and misleading information from the Ministry of Finance, this man, Minister Imbert, had the audacity to cut our budget in the police service by $300 million. At a time during COVID, there's going to be a 2-time increase in overtime, in vehicles being used, in fuel, in maintenance, in meals, and everything else. But you cut the police service, which is the main institution in any situation of a natural or man-made disaster. It showed lack of knowledge and understanding a nationwide pandemic and how to utilize it. However, what I did, as I said, I ran the police service as a business. Every single expense in the police service I was able to reduce. Electricity, making sure that at a certain hour, if it is that officers are not in, because I don't know how it is in other places, but in Trinidad and Tobago, politicians love to build the biggest police stations to hold 60 police officers, but at night only 3 are there. So what you have is you'll have about 20 rooms, fully lit, air conditioned on. So I was able to drastically reduce tens of millions of dollars in air condition, electricity, IT system. Started monitoring police vehicles, because a vehicle will sometimes go for fuel 3 times a day. Then you realize they were siphoning the fuel. So everything I did, I was able to reduce costs and utilize those funds to build an operational command center, to get body cameras, to get pepper spray, to get dashboard cameras on the vehicles, to be able to change the equipment, to improve the training of the police officers, to be able to get police officers equipped in getting new units such as the Special Operation Response Team, the Gender-Based Violence Unit. I was getting approval for drones, and I formed the Police Marine Branch, because we never had a Marine branch in decades. So by me being able to reduce expenditure, I was able to utilize those funds for what was needed, not because of any support given by the government. In fact, the first 5 months of every fiscal year, Colin Imbert saw it fit to ensure that we were not getting a cent. You can imagine running a business with 7,000 employees, 120 buildings, 2,000 vehicles without any money. I would spend half of my day speaking to to creditors to please don't pull the plug on us because it will affect the national security of the country. That is what I had to go through. And then what I realized that I had to get back into politics is when you have a minister of finance who do not understand you cannot use funds from goods and services, from salaries to pay for goods and services. So when I made a claim that for the first 5 months I don't get funds, he went to Parliament and said, look, I have given Gary 800 million. Colin Nimbert didn't understand that you cannot use salaries to pay bills for goods and services. That's what a Form 2 accounting student would do.
There was also something that came up, I read in an article, said that interception equipment obtained by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Commission, TTPS, was done via sole select, cost millions of dollars and lack cabinet approval. Under the Constitution, the Commissioner of Police needs cabinet approval.
That was a total lie. You would have noticed how they've all gone silent since then. And that is what politicians do. They lie. They use parliamentary privileges to lie. They lie to the country because I have all of the information on my phone. Let the government knew fully well of what I was acquiring, how I was acquiring it, how it was to be used. That's why they've gone silent. Because sometimes you forget messages that you put on your phone and what you send could come back and haunt you. So when it is the Prime Minister made that statement, he, not to say that he deliberately lied to the country, who drafted it for him misled him because this was done. And you know what is interesting? Patrick Manning spent 300 million TT for intercept equipment the Friday before the 2010 general election. And it's obvious these things will be done sole select. You can't put it out to a tender to let the country or let the enemies of the state be aware of the technology, the capability that you want. What I also acquired was over 10 times less than the cost of Pegasus, whilst ensuring it was almost as beneficial, which is why the same government officials, they were doing cartwheels. They were pleased because this was a crack to bring down human trafficking, terrorist activity, and major gang activity in the country. But unfortunately, political leaders on both sides started babbling about the technology, how it was to be used, how it could be stopped, and that I thought was inappropriate. I didn't want to get in that catfight, but I had to intervene when wrong statements were being made that this was acquired without approval. As the accounting officer, how could I get something if the funds weren't given to me by the government? The fact of the matter is that there's a budget allocation. I made a request for a budget for something. It was approved. But there's a difference between if you rent an item to if you purchase an item. They didn't even understand that. If you have to purchase something as a Commissioner of Police over 1 million TT, then you need cabinet approval. If I have to rent several vehicles, and it may cost over $1 million on rental, you did not need it. But you would put it on your budget allocation for the year, which was approved in Parliament.
Right. You mentioned Pegasus, and a lot of people probably don't know what Pegasus is, and I just learned about it. Pegasus is a spyware, a high-tech software used by police to interceptive software. The Prime Minister, I believe, said that software or that technology does not exist in Trinidad. Was I reading that?
Yeah, correct. The Prime Minister, what is unfortunate, we have the two main political parties until this new party has come in. Neither of them have anyone trained in national security. So they blunder, they trip over themselves, they do not know what to say or do. And therein lies the problem. The reason why the UNC was instrumental in reducing crime every year when they were in government was because they had Brigadier Joseph Theodore as their Minister of National Security from 1995 to 2000. From 2011 to 2015, they had General John Sandy, Brigadier General Carl Alfonso, myself. PNM, they never went that way. They always went with civilians. Because remember, Patrick Manning said all you need is common sense and a level head. And therein lies the problem. So when this Prime Minister starts babbling about what we have and what we don't have, the opposition leader starts bumping a gum to say what is being used for and how you could stop it from being intercepted. It shows ignorance at the highest level by politicians. These things you don't speak about. And as I said, in defense of the Prime Minister, I have no knowledge of any of the law enforcement agencies using this type of equipment illegally. My concern, however, was when a senior government official was trying to intimidate me to appoint a junior police constable to be in charge of this equipment. Now, that obviously would have raised a red flag. Why are you trying to tell me who to put to be in charge of the equipment that is going to be used to intercept persons? And that is why I made a system to ensure that checks and balances. If it is to be used by the police, the SSA must endorse it. If the SSA wants to use it, the police must endorse it. So there's a server and a backpack. I made sure each one had a different. When I left, Keith Rowley boasted that it must be dealt with only by the SSA. Hello, the SSA is a politically appointed tool of the government. And this is not to question those persons in the SSA right now. I have the highest confidence in them that they will not do so. But we have seen government officials handpick persons for their own choosing to deliberately assist them. Patrick Manning did it in 2009. The person he handpicked was the person that was involved in intercepting the phones of Keith Rowley, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, Gary Griffith, Anand Ramlogan, to name a few. Then we move forward a year later, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar appoints Rishmi Ramnarayan. We remember the dilemma there. Then we move to Eddie Dillon, appointed the head of the SSA with an individual who did not have any great degree of intelligence training because he was in charge of the engineer battalion in the army at the time. Then we move to a minister handpicking a constable. So we have seen political interference. So what I did was to prevent this from happening, making sure both sides will have it. But a prime minister jumps in and said, I only want the politically appointed unit to have full use of it. Who's to say that Keith Rowley might not just handpick somebody who he wants, who's politically appointed? That person could just say, anybody who's an opponent of the PNM, I will see as an enemy of the state, so we can intercept his phone. That obviously reeks of it's a need of serious concern.
So Pegasus, is it in use today in Trinidad and Tobago?
Of course, it's used around the world, but I am not going to vent here as to what is being used in Trinidad and Tobago. What I can say is that I was able to get the type of software that was critical to secure our country at 10 times less the cost of Pegasus, and it was well received and appreciated by this present government. So to have the audacity to mislead the country because of your pettiness in trying to, because Gary Griffith is seen as your political opponent, now we must lie and mislead the country, I took offense to that, and that's why I exposed their lies in Parliament.
Right. Guys, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity right now to call in to talk here with Mr. Gary Griffith, giving us a whole lot of information on how he were able to bring down crime. And I'm happy that you had that special unit involved in sexual abuse and violence, because we see a prevalence of that in the Caribbean, especially in that time, that COVID time. We saw an upsurge of it almost universally. And I'm happy, and I hope that they could keep that. This is a serious problem and continue to be a serious problem. So Gary, you did all this stuff, great stuff. We're able to bring down crime. 2020 was down to its lowest, down to 58% or so of violent crime. What happened? Why aren't you not the police commissioner today?
Because unfortunately, Keith Rowley is someone who, and I have the world of respect for the guy. Had it not been for Keith Rowley, I would not have been given a position as Commissioner of Police. When I came first and I topped the merit list with the highest number of points in 2018, the Police Service Commission at the time was a UNC-appointed Police Service Commission. But even though UNC moved into opposition, they appointed those individuals. So those individuals, it seems that they were either briefed or they were very dumb, because their concept is, we don't care if Gary Griffith got the highest points, we decide to place him fourth. That is what happened. I got more points than every single person who applied for the post as Commissioner of Police. The person who came second, I got 81.94. Stephen Williams got 75. I defeated by 6%, and Jacob and all the others were way down the ladder. Keith Rowley said to himself, look, this is the man for the job. So I have no reason, if it is after 3 years, he changes his mind. That is his right. He didn't give me a job for life. What I had an issue with is when it is that you started to try to discredit me and try to slander my name with false accusations and statements by a government leaking deliberate information of lies to the public. I stand firm to defend my name. And then when I started exposing the orchestrated plot, instead of it trying to, their plan was to discredit me, I started getting more national support because the country realized, wait a minute, you reached a point where you decided to go to president's house, get a president. The president did not adhere to the law. She did not adhere to the law. The law says hand over the merit list to Parliament. She refused. A president refused to adhere to the law. That's what happened in this country, and she's silent. The Police Service Commission decides to take a piece of paper from Keith Rowley and use that as an avenue to pull back a merit list where you have no authorization to do. They tried to suspend a commissioner of police illegally. And then when our lawyers sent it to them, they apologized and retracted it because it seems that they were given instructions to have me removed. All of this because one person decides to give him a report that was littered with, it is alleged, it is rumored, and we have heard. And that you cannot, and you as a prime minister have turned this country upside down because of hearsay and propaganda. And it shows the hypocrisy of Keith Rowley, because in the same manner when he spoke about Caribbean banks recently when he went to the United States, he said innocent until proven guilty, and you got to prove it. He said no ministers are involved in any fraud as it pertains to state land sales. But here you have a man whispers to you nonsense. And the reason he did that is because I stepped on many toes in the police service. That is a fact. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is a very good group of men, the vast majority, but there were a few hundred. Some of them claimed that they were working 24 hours a day, 30 days a month. So they were getting about 10,000 US a month when they're supposed to be getting 1.5 US a month. And so when I put a stop to that overtime corruption, I reduced overtime corruption by over 20 million US per annum. So it affected a few hundred police officers. It affected police officers who were involved in deliberately holding back firearms when people applied for years and they can't get it sent up for approval unless you pay them. I was able to put a hold on police officers using vehicles, securing drug blocks, escorting criminal elements. So by me going after the criminal elements, some of these same individuals whispered to politicians who then passed on to the prime minister, and Keith Rowley took the bait. And it was unfortunate. One of the things I also heard is that they told him that if Gary was reappointed, it was going to cause a repeat of the day of total policing and the police would revolt, which was a lie, because the UK government did a poll on Gary Griffith. 93% of the second division officers, that is about 90% of the police service as the junior officers, they supported me. 60% in the senior supported me, because sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The things I was doing to ensure that they worked and they performed, some of them were upset about it because they were just doing what in the army was known as ROAD, R-O-A-D, retired on active duty. I was getting officers, you get up and you've got to work, you've got to start. I make you accountable for your division, your station, and you need to account if something was going right or wrong. So some of them wanted me out, and they were able to whisper to the politicians who they knew. The politicians whispered to the prime minister, and he has made that decision that has caused the country now to be the highest degree of bloodshed ever seen in our nation's history. And that is unfortunate. But my point is, that is his call. He's a prime minister. But if you wanted me to leave, I would have said, thank you, prime minister, gone off into the sunset. But you started having your government put an orchestrated hate campaign to discredit me. And that is why I started coming forward, because that was totally uncalled for. It was totally unacceptable by feeding lies to misinform the public as to what Gary Griffith's character is.
Yeah, we got a call on the call right now. Call it live. Where are you calling us from?
Yes, hi, Junior and Gary. This is Nyla John. I'm actually calling from Maryland.
Hey, Nyla, how are you?
I am. How are you doing? This is an excellent program. Actually, Gary is someone that I've admired for many years, and in my line of work of gender-based violence in St. Vincent, and also the rights of individuals in St. Vincent, their human rights and constitutional rights. And violence against our children, and violence within society. And so, Gary, I'm so pleased to be able to see you on this live view with Junior, and I really just want to commend you for your work that you've done in Trinidad. I'm not a Trinidadian, but I've followed your work throughout the years that you were Commissioner of Police. And it's really commendable. And I'm really pleased to know that you are responsible for implementing the gender-based violence unit there. I think that a lot of the Caribbean, the region, the islands need your expertise as a commissioner, and I admire you for not afraid to stand up to the politicians as a commissioner. And I think that lacks tremendously across the Caribbean region presently. As I said, I do a lot of work. I have 2 nonprofits that benefit St. Vincent, and I would love to have a conversation with you on the units of gender-based violence. I was just interviewed today by one of the television stations there, because the murder rate and the violence against women is tremendous there in a very small island of about 100,000 people.
Yes.
And so I really commend you, for your efforts, Gary. It's I Jr., thank you for having him on this program.
Absolutely.
I would love to try and get him on a program in St. Vincent where he can discuss some of these things that he has discussed here and how he had control. And when I say control, I don't mean control to a point of being a narcissist, but control over his department, his force, his police force. And Gary, I wish you all the best in your political career. Maybe that's what Trinidad needs, something different, something where someone actually is about their country and how it's going to progress.
Thank you.
And how we're going to eliminate the issues of gender-based violence and crime. Thank you so much.
No problem. And they don't say they don't say Trinidad and Tobago police force. That force was taken out. His service. And I think that is the goal. Gary, you want to respond to the caller?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I will continue to support any area in the Caribbean. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I met with the Guyanese government, the Minister of Home Affairs, discussing with them the systems that was done in Trinidad and Tobago. They wanted to know what it is that I did to reduce crime, to build public trust and confidence, the different units that I formed, inclusive of the gender-based violence unit. So I may be working with them closely because they wanted Guyana to get exactly what happened in Trinidad and Tobago under my watch. They would obviously like to see Guyana have the same situation. And again, it is unfortunate. I don't say unfortunate, but it's the way my parents brought me up. It's the way I was trained. I will swear my allegiance is to my God, my country, and the people. And on 2 occasions, I have stood up to 2 governments. As the Minister of National Security at the time, there was a situation that took place, and it's one thing I intend to be honest, and I'm not going to lie. And there was a situation where something was brought to my attention. The police asked me if I'm willing to give the information. I said yes, and it seemed that the government at the time wanted me to lie to protect others, and I said I was not going to do it, and then I was removed as minister. And likewise, even recently with Keith Rowley, when he did not, because of his ignorance and understanding the law, he was trying to allude to the fact that the police officers had the right to arrest citizens at their homes during the public health regulations. He did not understand public health regulations. You cannot arrest people in their homes. And I stood firm. Had I not done so, it would have been a repeat of 2011 when over 500 Afro-Trinidadian young men were arrested in a very foolish manner because the government influenced the police to do so, and the police didn't stand firm. So I would stand firm based on what is right. I will do what is right. And if it is that I have to pay the price for whatever, so be it. But I'm not going to be a puppet to anyone based on wrongdoing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Gary.
All right. Thank you for calling. Again, 718-701-5720. If you want to speak here live with Mr. Gary Griffith, you could call this number, 718-701-5720. Gary, you said a couple of things and just piggyback on a bit, right? We just saw what happened in Virgin Island, where the premier was arrested and charged for money laundering and drugs. Essentially, for those of you who have not been following the news, essentially the chief executive in the BVI was involved in criminal activities, corruption, and that corruption not only spanned with him, it actually influenced the port. So imports that was coming in, he was partnering, or he influenced the port, the person in charge of the port, to allow for illegal drugs to come through. After the commissioner of inquiry investigated the matter, they realized that there was systemic corruption from the highest office, other agencies in the British Virgin Islands. Hence the reason why the recommendation was to take back rule. British was to take back rule because of all this corruption in the police force, in Parliament, the opposition, and it just all up and down. How could the Caribbean region seriously look and curtailing corruption? Or is it
definitely
curtailed?
Definitely not. Like, let's use Trinidad and Tobago, for example. One of the things that we intend to do with this political party, if and when we get into government, is to diminish the powers of a government. Because what happens is that it is very unfortunate that how our constitution was drafted. Our constitution was drafted in such a manner that it allowed the prime minister to handpick the president, the speaker of the house, the president of the senate, the commissioner of police, the chief of defense staff. So he basically becomes a dictator using democracy, and that makes it very difficult to have checks and balances. So if you have a police commissioner, so if the other police commissioners may have done exactly, would not have done what I did and not stand firm, and you would have had hundreds of persons being arrested wrongfully because the person who appointed you You are saying, listen, I put you there, you better sing for your supper. And unless you have a police commissioner who has that flexibility and or principle and moral values to understand, I am not listening to you, then fire me, which is what Rowley practically did with me because I was not going to sing for my supper. This is what is going to happen. So we must not have a situation where the politicians have full authority. We are trying to mimic what happens in New York City. New York City, the mayor handpicks the commissioner of police and he can hire and fire him. But checks and balances could be put through the FBI and other organizations if we see that the mayor is trying to influence the police commissioner to that extent. Not in Caribbean islands. So if the prime minister handpicks the commissioner of police, that commissioner of police, if he wants the job so badly, he will do everything that the politician tells him to do. And there's a strong perception that that is taking place now in Trinidad and Tobago because the individual who acts as commissioner, it seems that every single thing that I have said and done, he has shut down, he has dismantled, he has removed. And that cannot be done based on the politicians doing that. It's he alone has to do it. And I can't see a commissioner being so short-sighted to have done this. So that is a problem. I mean, going back to my situation, Keith Rowley said it, the reports I have in cabinet, he said if he could get 10 Gary Griffiths, he will clean up the country. In April last year, he changed the law for me to act as commissioner of police. That's the only reason I reapplied, because he wanted me to come back. If it is he did not want me to come back, I served my time and I would have left. But he changed his mind, and when he changed his mind, all he had to do was tell me, and I would have walked away without all of this bacchanal and getting the president, the police service commission, and embarrass the country. But he refused. His pride got the better of him. My point being is that if you have politicians trying to handpick commissioners of police and select them, we will have this problem throughout the Caribbean.
So the system as it's set up in the Caribbean is ripe for corruption. It is just glaring. I mean, corruption will happen in this situation here because of what you just outlined. Are you surprised at what happened in the BVI?
No, not at all. It's just that they were caught. The individuals were caught. The same things may very well be happening throughout the Caribbean. And that's the point. Because when as Commissioner of Police, within the first few months, a senior minister in this government was arrested. People say, well, that's it. You're mad. You're getting fired tomorrow. But I had to do, if there's report and there's evidence and there's data, I can't turn a blind eye to say I'm not going to arrest this person because of her political affiliation. And you know, strange enough, when that happened, they said, you see, Gary Griffith is always a UNC. He fooled us. He's not going to protect us. And then a few months later, a senior previous government official of the UNC and a senator were also arrested. And then I was told they see Gary Griffith singing for his supper because PNM appointed him there. It's always based on the politics. I didn't see it on the politics. I see it based on evidence. And if there's enough evidence, we move forward. If there isn't, I am not going to drive it forward. I was able to drop the accusations on Kamala Persad-Bissessar on the weed outside her home. For God's sake, there was some marijuana outside her home. See, people didn't want to call it what it was. They called it a plant-like substance. It was weed. But outside her home, you had over 20 members of special branch, police, gardeners, staff members around. She can't be blamed because they did not have access inside. If that was inside the home, that was something different. I removed that, the email gate. I put an end to that. There was a report on Keith Rowley being involved in some corrupt activity. I said we looked at it, it was totally inaccurate. So I was able to clear many situations on both sides. I was able to put persons who were arrested on both sides, and that's how I played it. If it is I don't think many political parties in the Caribbean would like to be in government to have a commissioner of police who is impartial and neutral. They would like to have one that is going to turn on the opposition, and that is not Gary Griffith.
I see. And there's a big problem, Gary. That is a massive problem because as we see, the whole system is just ripe for corruption from top to bottom. But Gary, in all I was said here, you decided now that you would move in the direction of forming, I don't know if you want to put it like that, establishing, putting together a new political voice. Why is it necessary? Why is it necessary? Why do you think that Trinidad and Tobago need a new political voice? We have the PNM, we have the UNC, we have the what is it, PDP? Is it PDP in Winston Duke? Why couldn't you just probably see what the UNC need to be fixed and work towards fixing that, or work with the PNM or work with the PDP? Why is it necessary to have a new political organization?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and you're correct. I could have easily gone across to the UNC because of the support base that I have, and that would have shifted that what is known as the floating voters across to the UNC to remove the PNM, or I could have joined the PNM, and you're correct. But at this point in time, these two major political parties have been weighed, measured, and found wanting. This is not the PNM and the UNC in 2007, where there were two very powerful political leaders in Patrick Manning and Basio Pandey. There was a very strong base, and there was a degree of control and character. You're not seeing it here. It is a fact. I mean, even the most rabid PNM supporter would admit it is the worst government this country has ever seen. In 7 years, you ask, what has the PNM delivered? What have they done? In their 2020 manifesto, their big claim to fame was Gary Griffith. Everything went to health, the economy, education, sport, everything went haywire. The one thing is they put Gary Griffith as a poster boy in their manifesto, big glossy photo of me as a commissioner of police, politicized me by saying, we appointed Gary Griffith. 89% of the country loves Gary Griffith. They want him back. Look what we have done. Vote for us to come back. That says a lot about their failure as a government in that 5 years. But the reason they got back in government is because the 150, 200,000 floating voters that usually will be the pendulum to decide who stays and who goes, looked at the UNC and looked at that batting lineup. And it was like the West Indies cricket team, not the West Indies cricket team in the 80s, the West Indies cricket team now. And they said, we can't see these people being ministers in our country. And they voted for the PNM with their eyes closed, their nose held, and they voted out of the lesser of two evils, which is why I said that unlike the United States, you got Republicans and Democrats. But in the I don't know how the Caribbean stands, but in Trinidad and Tobago, definitely, there's been a high intensity, and it gradually increases as the days, the years go by, of that type of political party outside of the PNM and UNC base. It started in 1981 under the ONR, and they got 91,000 votes. Moved 10 years later, it went on the NAR, standing on their own, they got 127,000 votes. We then move up 16 years later to 2007, where the Congress of the People, they got 147,000 votes. And that 147,000, mind you, going back to what I said initially, there were two major political parties with a strong base, strong foundation, and two well-respected leaders. At this time, both the PNM and the UNC, 1/3 of their base want to leave. But 1/3 of that PNM are not going to go across to the UNC because of hatred. 1/3 of the UNC base will not go across to the PNM because of race or whatever. So this is where, apart from the 147,000 in 2007, you got 1/3 of both base of the base of PNM and UNC want to come somewhere. And then let us always remember, you got 16 to 33-year-olds who never had a choice of a third party, who would have that choice in 2 years' time, which is another 150,000 new voters. The young voters are those who are not committed to mommy and daddy says that they voted PNM on UNC, so that is what I will do. The polls, when I was being polled as a commissioner of police, the mass support I had were the youths. The young persons saw me as being independent, dynamic, someone who they could trust. And if it is that youth vote can transcend into this party, it means that with a party that can get anything over 200,000 votes, you now become a major factor to decide who is in government.
National Transformation Alliance. Tell us about the name. I mean, when you look at face value, transformation stands out. What is your I don't want to say vibe, because that's not the right way to put it, but what is your whole take? What is your concept of transformation?
I'll tell you, the word transformation. For people who understand Trinidad and Tobago politics, governments don't get voted in, governments get voted out. It has happened all the time. No one government has been in office for 2 consecutive full terms since 1976, I think. So it shows that there's instability in our country, and it means that every government, whether it's the PNM or UNC, they will fail the population and they throw them out. And what I think, what is required now is to ensure that there's proper governance for and an option through transformation. What happens too often is that the government, whoever's in the government, before you get into government, the first thing you start doing throughout your campaign is to try to discredit your political opponents. That's what they do. And it happens at this time where the PNM and the UNC, they spend 90% of their time on a political platform trying to demonize the other. That is not transformation. That can't help the country, because guess what happens, Julian? When you finally get in government, you realize, oh man, we made it. We outmaneuver them, and we made them more hated than us. So how are we going to run the country? Okay, all right. Well, I don't have Imbert, you become Minister of Finance. You know nothing about finance, but find 5 guys to work with you and form policies. Shamfa Kudro, I know you never played sport in your life, but you become Minister of Sport. Simon de Nobrega, you know nothing about communication. Just stay there and smile. And that cannot run a country. So what we intend to do is the transformation of this country is to make sure we are not going to be spending time criticizing or condemning either side. They have done that on their own. The country knows that. What they want to see is what makes you anything better. What makes you a viable alternative, that you have the systems, the policies, the platform, the program, the people, and the political will to do what is required. One of the main things we intend to do, as I said, is to diminish the powers of a government, because that has been our problem. Eric Williams set our constitution in 1976, deliberately designed to ensure democracy via dictatorship. And by doing this, it means that when you're in power, you will do whatever you want. The UNC will complain about it. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar spoke about 2 terms, maximum and recall. But as soon as you get in power, it's like Animal Farm. You enjoy the dictatorship and you do not want to amend it. We need to make it mandatory that, and I'll give you a quick example. We speak about budget allocations and how you improve the economy. And we have something called state boards. And in the state boards, it is really an avenue to get jobs for the boys who have a party card in their back pocket. 95% of the persons who are appointed in state boards have no clue or training or qualification in the board that they represent. So how can you expect to get productivity from it? So what we intend, and then it litters itself for corruption by mismanagement, giving funds and contracts to your friends and family members. So what we intend to do, for example, is to ensure that all the state boards, 20% of state board members must be selected by the opposition to monitor and to prevent corruption from taking place. That a commissioner of police must not be handpicked by a politician, prime minister, or chief of defense staff. So all of these things we intend to do to transform the country and making sure that we have the best people, the best minds available to improve all aspects in ensuring good governance in this country.
No square peg in the wrong hole. Nothing like that.
Correct.
Are you willing to work with others from across the aisle, bring them in as well?
Yeah, well, definitely. Now, again, going back to even if you're in the PNM or the UNC, when the PNM or the UNC wins, we lose 1/2 of our major resource, which is human resource. So if you say arguably the 10 most intelligent persons in finance in the country, we lose 5 immediately, because all 10 can be top 10 of the PNM and the top 10 UNC. So what happens is that you lose 1/2 of the best financial minds for 5 years because of the party card that they have. That cannot be right. We intend to ensure that the best persons available, the best minds available come forward. And you don't need to have a party card of the NT in your back pocket. There's a difference between a member and a supporter. So what we are starting to get now are persons working in the World Bank, persons in different aspects throughout the world who are Trinidad and Tobago citizens that are willing to come back home and give back to this country. They could not have done it because they never had a PNM or a UNC party card. We have so many brilliant minds out there that could transform this country if we get it right. And then we go to an important point in the selection process for candidates. We have 41 constituencies. So both parties would select 41 candidates based on who the political leader is comfortable with that will support them politically, not the 41 best minds in the country, because some of them, unfortunately, are not good enough to open a gyro store. And I certainly would put them to hire them to go there. But so when you win 23-18, 22-19 or whatever, you are now forced with 22 individuals, some of them with no qualification other than the fact that I am loyal to Kamala or Keith. And now you have to turn these persons into ministers to run a ministry without any qualification or capability to run such. That is madness. When you are selected as a candidate, as a member of parliament, your job was selected to run the constituency to who you are appointed. These ministers, when they get their jobs, they do not go in their constituencies, which is why the constituencies are run down. A member of parliament is supposed to be a glorified high-end councillor who is to look after the well-being of the constituents on a daily basis. That is what we will be looking at. And then we have the upper house, which will comprise 15 persons, and you select 10, 12, 14 members of cabinet of the best minds available in health, education, national security, the economy, social development, sport, that will now be able to run the ministries in a proper manner as if they were running a major business. That is how you run a government. That is how you run a country. And that is what we intend to do, which is why we call it transformation. And the alliance is trying to get persons to come on board regardless of your political affiliation. This country has been divided so much because of race through politics. We intend to change that, and that's where the alliance comes in.
Yeah. We got our last caller. That's our final call for the day. Caller, you're live on air. Where are you calling us from?
Hi, calling from New York.
Go right ahead, New York.
Mr. Griffith, I want to commend you on the great job you started doing. However, I'm an avid viewer of a lot of the social media sites as well as the news entities out of Trinidad and Tobago. We all are in the Caribbean and we have an interest in politics when we look at what's happening. I want to ask a question as related to the proportion of blacks who were arrested or murdered under police watch in Trinidad and Tobago during the Kit Rowley administration rule. How much percent of blacks were incarcerated, and how much? Because we talk about rape in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm seeing a lot of I see a lot of rape there. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean it in a negative way, but I'm seeing it. It's obvious that definitely we know that the police are always over policing the black communities. I want to know what the proportion of black persons were incarcerated, black men and women, and as well as compared to Indians or who consider themselves to be somewhat white. Did you make any change? Did you try to make any change in that sense? And you talked about the Prime Minister changing the rules or the law. Don't you think it was the right thing for him to do, since you said that it was a dictatorship thing under the UNC before, and he tried to bring it to a point where it was going to be more balanced?
Let's give him an opportunity to answer. Give him an opportunity to answer the first part of the question.
But it is a fact. If it is, you look at Afro-Trinidadians or Indo-Trinidadians, they're all considered black. So I think it's more like about 99% of those incarcerated would be Afro-Indo-Trinidadians. If you want to compare it separately, I think it could be more like around 80% of Afro-Trinidadians are those that would usually be arrested. But again, the problem lies with that is that the majority of those who are involved in the gang-related activity would be Afro-Trinidadians. And so it is not that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service goes out there to handpick and say, let's look and see if we can find Afro-Trinidadian boys. It is because of the confrontation that they would get, whether it is rapid fire, whether it is arrests. We try our best. And again, which is the important thing to understand, is that the police officers, unlike the United States, the police officers who are doing that in Trinidad and Tobago are black. So it is not to say that there is some degree of racism by the police service in Trinidad and Tobago. Why would black police officers want to target black citizens in their own country? So there's not that degree of racism to say that there's a deliberate intent. What we need to do, however, is to ensure that, which is what I was doing through systems of the Commissioner's Cup. I had something referred to as Crossroads, getting 1,000 of the most high-risk youths and having them become a big brother to 1,000 police officers, having undercover police officers in the at-risk schools. All of these things collapsed and shut down after I left. It was total deliberate sabotage by individuals who just did not understand. So there's a lot that we could do and we should be doing to minimize the possibility of Afro-Trinidadians being involved in turning into a life of crime. I mean, one of the biggest things, some of them are arrested for the smallest of offenses, but because of our high recidivism rate, because of poor rehabilitation in our justice system, they come out a more hardened criminal. And it is a problem in our case, our situation, which is why in 2010, as a security advisor, I drafted the Ministry of Justice to deal with just that.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much, caller. Thank you. All right, thank you. Appreciate you.
There is some more questions to a few answers, but I would like to, to answer the second part of the question as to why don't you think that it was a good move by the PM to change the law, because he gave him a fair chance to be seen as not a selectee, but someone who really got the job based on the quality and experience. And
Yeah,
this,
sorry. You have to help me here. When you said he changed the law, pertaining to what? I just want to clarify what you're saying. What law was
well,
this?
if you said that he changed the law and have you been appointed as an assistant chief or something like that, I don't want to quote the say exact.
All right, so, okay, I understand. Yeah, no, right. So he amended it because how our law was is that to act as commissioner of police. When my term ended in August 2021, my term would have ended unless I reapplied and I would have topped the merit list again. But until then, the person to act had to be a career police officer. He amended the law to ensure that I would remain to act as police commissioner. That is how much confidence he had in me. So when he hit everyone with all the hullabaloo about how he was disappointed in me and all of that, that was not true, because up until April last year, he changed the law. He changed the law to ensure that, and he told the cabinet, we cannot lose Gary Griffith for a day because of what he was doing. But people whispered in his ears, and unfortunately, we just went south from there.
Thank you, Faber. Thank you.
Between you and the PM and things. If you so love your job and love Trinidad and Tobago, there must be a way for a bridge to happen.
Well, so I agree with you 100%, and I contacted him on dozens of occasions. I was willing to be polygraphed on anything that people accused me of. I would be polygraphed, and you can't beat a polygraph like that. And I was willing to show him that they were lying to him. He was being misinformed, because there were evil elements in the country that did not like what was happening in Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad and Tobago was turning around and it was becoming a safe country. And remember, crime is big business, not just the guys with their pants sagging, but people in suits, and they benefited. So there was a major orchestrated plan, and he was hoodwinked. And I was willing, I kept trying to speak to him, explain to him, and he refused.
There must have been an exchange or emotions there, and I think definitely there comes a time when sometimes you have to say, let me be the humble one or be the bigger one. Sit at the table and look each other in the eyes and
so yeah, but I tried that so many dozens of times, to the point where he blocked me from communicating. What more could I do?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me just, on a programming note, we did put a call out to have the Prime Minister. That would happen in a matter of weeks or so. We'll try to have Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley on the ride along to chat a bit. You know what I mean? We like to interact with our Caribbean leaders. And of course, Mr. Guest, thank you so much for taking your time out to chat with us here. Very informative conversation, and we appreciate you. Don't be a stranger. We're family around here. You have an open door policy for whenever you want to come back and chat with us. We appreciate you.
Yeah, because one thing before we leave, again, one of the things that we need major transformation. One obviously has to do with the fact that you are out there. We have about 300,000 of you all out there who have Trinidad and Tobago passports that you can't even vote to select your own government. I intend to put pressure to ensure that you must have that opportunity, because you are no less a citizen of this country because you migrate or you're living elsewhere. You have dual citizenship. It is improper, it is unprofessional that you all are being deprived from your constitutional right to vote to select your own government. And that's why we have many things that need changing, but sometimes politicians don't want to make the change because it may not benefit them. I intend to do what is right for the country.
Yeah. And where could they get more information about the NAT, National Transformation Alliance?
Yeah, well, again, anyone who wants to apply for membership or get information, you can WhatsApp or text 868-482 or 483 Gary. That's 482 or 483-4279. You can also send an email, ntaistheway@gmail.com. We also have the Facebook pages, Instagram, a number of different things. I'll forward it to you later on when I come off here.
Right, and we'll make sure we put it in the comment section here, Gary. Listen, Gary, when I come to Trinidad, Jed, we had to bust a lime. I had to say, yo, I'm hanging with Gary. Ain't nobody gonna mess with me. Go and get some Polari and stuff.
It's been a pleasure this evening. All the best.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah, that was Mr. Gary Griffith, former police commissioner there in Trinidad and Tobago, taking his time to have this conversation on the commencement of a new political organization, the National Transformation Alliance, the NAT. And as I said earlier, that we did put in a call to have the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago Dr. Keith Rowley on the program. That's going to happen sometime. Hopefully happen before the end of next week, right? We're going to try to make it happen for you guys. And there's so much more that we need to talk about. In fact, we are following the story in the BVI, guys. Very, very serious situation in the BVI where people in the BVI is protesting because British wants to gain rule over the BVI. Of course, the BVI is a colony, it's not an independent country. They don't have a prime minister, they have a premier. So, you know, they are alleging of widespread systemic corruption in that country. And the recommendation is for the British to suspend the constitution for at least 2 years, go in and basically vet everybody else in political office, from the opposition, I mean everybody, police and everybody else, because of this systemic corruption that's happening. Big news. The conversation that needs to be had right now is how well are we keeping checks and balance on our leaders from our countries, ensuring that they don't misuse the country's purse. And we have to keep them there. We have to keep asking the questions, even when they get mad, even when our political leaders get upset, even when they don't want to answer our calls. We have to keep calling. They have to be a strong, whether it's media force or opposition force, because you, me, we are supposed to be the opposition. And at the end of the day, when all of this stuff happens, it's bad for our children and our children, right? And it's not pretty good. It's not a pretty sight whatsoever. So we are going to continue to ask the questions. We are going to continue to keep those politicians' foot to the fire. It don't matter who is in power. It don't matter who is sitting in that political chair. We are going to be here and asking the hard questions and trying to get some answers for you, the people. Because you're the boss. You're the boss. All right? Talking about the boss, I got to be up Lois JJ. She's the boss. She's the one ensure that all this stuff happens here and right along, making sure that we have all the guests, making sure that everything's, making sure that she supply me with all my notes and everything. Lois JJ is the boss. And in the studio here, no, it's not me, it's Jacoby. Jacoby is the one that's handling all the cameras and everything you see on the screen. That's Jacoby right over there. In the chat room, we have some bosses there too, Gail and Deanne Fraser and Kibbs. Those are the boss. I'm just your humble servant. How about that? Yeah, I'm just your humble servant. I'm good being your humble servant. Guys, I want to invite your humble servant would like to invite you to his birthday party. How about that? Your humble servant would like to invite you to his birthday party. Kobe, please tell them about my birthday party.
Friday, May 13th, Brooklyn, New York. Are you ready to play a wicked mass? As Ride Along presents Midnight Mass, the Ultra Glow Fest. Everything must glow. Junior George official birthday party featuring live from Grenada for the very first time. Little Jello.
Why not Ginger?
Jello.
And you're playing bad guy.
Together with the Energy Kings of Soca, Looney Spark and Electrify Live. Also coming to shell the place down, it's Mr. Lex and Denise Swasiwa Belfon. All going down inside 178 Newport Street, Brooklyn, New York. Get your Oliver tickets for only $30 more at the door. Get them on Eventbrite, nightmass.eventbrite.com. And for more details, 718-701-5720. Your DJs, DJ Hot Stepper, Lil B, and DJ Spice. It's Midnight Mass, the Ultra Glow Fest. Glow sticks on entry. Wear something white. Midnight Mass. Inside of Brooklyn, 178 Newport Street. Friday, May 13th.
But yeah, guys. So my birthday party, midnight. I want to see everybody there. Please come and shake a leg with me, cause I ain't my birthday in 2 years. Been 2 years since I say I ain't celebrating nothing. I ain't even conquered my age for 2 years. So on the 13th, May 13th, I'm 1 year older. Come and party with me, guys, in Brooklyn, 178 Newport. Get your tickets at nightmass.eventbrite.com. That's nightmass.eventbrite.com. It's going to be amazing. That's it right there. Looney Spark and Electrify. For the first time in New York, Lil Jello, Jenny Sasiwa Bell Fund, and a whole lot more. Write it down on your calendar, guys. May 13th, May 13th, May 13th, May 13th. You can't afford to miss it. Kobe, what's else happening?
On Sunday, May 8th, Mother's Day, New Face Promotion presents Retro Bingo. Retro Bingo. Up to $5,000 in cash. 5 $200 games, 2 $500 games, 1 $1,000 game, and the jackpot $2,000. Retro Bingo going down at 178 Newport Street. Music by DJ Flawless, No Apology, and DJ Hot Stepper. Your tickets cost $40. More at the door. For more info, call 347-304-5453. Zelle or Cash App is accepted. Start time 7 p.m. It's Retro Bingo. Mother's Day, Sunday, May 8th. Lots of giveaways for the ladies. Retro Bingo, up to $5,000 in cash. Sunday, May 8th, Mother's Day.
Yeah. Guys, also, I got to tell you about this. It's coming up. It's coming up pretty soon. We'll announce it. We're going to be having our $3,000 money bingo. Big money bingo. $3,000. Ride along support group. Big money bingo. It's going to be virtual and in person. Tickets are $20. You can get 5 tickets because you want to triple and quadruple and sing triple your chances of winning, right? So it is $3,000 Ride Along support group, and you know all the funds raised on Ride Along goes back to the support group in helping others. So you're paying it forward to support our bingo. It's going to be, the date will be announced this week, but rest assured it will be publicized. And also, you guys outside of the New York City area, you could participate virtually as well. So Ride Along $3,000 bingo. Stay tuned for more information. Coming very soon. If you're going Grenada, guys, you're playing Monday Night Mass. We're playing Monday Night Mass with Amazing Colors. Kobe, you can tell them about Amazing Colors. You have it? Amazing Colors, Monday Night Mass in Grenada. Grenada Carnival is called the Trilogy.
The wait is over. The time is now. The time is now. Get ready for Mass. Get ready for Mass. Get ready for Mass. We are back.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching live. Catch you guys again tomorrow. Tomorrow, more vibe, more action. Don't you dare miss it. Peace out, guys. Good night.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291.
Hi, my name is Junior George, founder and host of Ride Along Live, and I'm inviting you to become a paid subscriber to this platform. With your support of just $4.99 per month, you could do so much to help this platform grow and to help us help you and others around the world. We encourage you to click that link and become a supporter today. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Well, it's on Ride Along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean? You know, I grew up in what I guess you call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Right along live, I mean, yeah, it's the real deal.